If you've been following along, I've sort of changed my plan. I originally had a single unit put in here, but I realized with the batteries and everything, it was going to weigh a lot, and I wouldn't be able to easily maneuver it into the space as a single large box. So I decided that I would split it up into a battery box, which will go on the bottom, and we'll start off with two 200 amp hour batteries, Victron batteries, and I'll talk about all that as I go along. But then on top of that will be the electronics and stuff, as well as the kind of office-y, desky part that's going to go in. So I've got the bottom part, the cage of it built, and right now I need to put the rails in here that I decided I'm going to use. This will allow me to change it out if I want to in the future, give me some flexibility. But I'm going to put the rails in here, and then we'll set the box on, and I'll be drilling the mounting holes and see how that goes. So I custom made these rails to fit in the bolt brackets where the seat bolted down to, and there's absolutely nothing square about how the seat was bolted. That is, that all of the brackets were willy-nilly. So I'm not too worried about it being perfectly square, but I would like it to be square enough for me to be able to use in the future for different types of objects that I might want to put in this place. This is all made with 1/8 inch steel welded together, so it should be plenty strong. So I've got the rails secured down, not fully, but at least to where they can stay stiff for a little bit. This is the box I created. I've made it very carefully so I can make it as big as possible and yet still get it in here, in and out without too much trouble. I still have a lot of design questions, but I'm starting to get a better idea of what's going to happen. Batteries, the new lithiums, they handle temperature better. There's a problem if they get too hot that they tend to explode. So one of the things we're doing is making sure that we cool this somewhat. Temperatures are up to about 140 degrees for safety, and they have a battery management system that tends to make sure they don't get charged when they're at a dangerous temperature. So all of that's been accounted for, but I still want to make sure I have plenty of air circulation. The air conditioning unit actually comes out here for the passenger side. I've removed the little funnel, but cold air will actually come down into this area. So I'm going to put steel strips across here, leaving a lot of openings, and that'll let air circulate from the bottom. I'm also planning on putting in at least one, maybe two fans in this box that will come on in case of overheating. So right now, my next plan is to put some metal strip in here, weld that in for the battery box. I can then drill holes into that for mounting it to this bar. I'm going to have to probably put a metal strip across the back here for allowing me to mount to that bar there, which is just going to require me doing some welding and then some drilling some holes. So that's the next step. So here's what I came up with. I basically sewed metal on the bottom and left area for air so that the batteries would be able to breathe. And I sewed two mounting tabs onto either edge so that I should be able to drill holes and get it mounted to the frame pretty well. And I have to say that I'm not trying to say that I've gotten good at welding yet. I haven't, but I have gotten a hell of a lot better. And I've noticed that my welds at least are starting to look like welds. Now I'm able to fit it in without jiggling it too much. And this should be fine, certainly plenty of strong to carry 40-pound batteries. A lot of battery. But now I need to drill holes here, 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 and here for the mounting points, which will go into these really cool screw-in units that I discovered watching video online. So I'll show that part as well. I've drilled all of the pilot holes in here, 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 and here. I've had to make I did the pilot holes because it's pretty big, the nuts I'm putting in. These are M10s. But what I'm going to use is this cool device here, which lets me put these mandrels in, which have threads in them. But what's really cool is that you use this device right here, and then once it's in, you clamp up like this, take this out, and these are really neat. Then you've got this, it squeezes the flange in there so that it's basically completely pushed in and tight to the steel. And now I can bolt and unbolt, and to my heart's content. So this is really cool. This is going to be really nice for me to be able to put the boxes in and out. All right, so now I need to drill all of the rest of the big holes, and then I got to do the same in the box. And then we can see if we can put this thing in and see if it'll stay in what feels like a semi-permanent way. Well, you may have noticed I had to take this out because as the bar was positioned in the truck, I could not get to where I could actually do the bolts. But you can see here, basically when you squeeze down on them, they crimp in there really well. So it's a really cool system. If I'm lucky, this is the last time I'll have to take these things out, at least for a while, because I think they're pretty much done now with their mounting points. So I'll secure them in and torque them down, and then I'll get working on the box. I have drilled the holes for the mounting points, and I welded some ears on this. So the next thing now is going to be making wood walls. The top is actually going to be open, and the top is going to actually, I think, that the next piece that goes on, the electronic piece, is going to just sit in it and kind of work that way. But I have to wait and see how that's going to work out. So like everything else, I have to plan it as I go along. All right, so at this point, I've translocated down to my woodworking shop, where my plan, I've got some carpeting, automotive carpeting, and I think I'm going to use it on 1/2-inch plywood to do the walls, which will look something like this. It's done. But I've got to, on the sides, I've got to cut out some holes for vents, which I've got coming, or fans, as well as handles, because I'd like to be able to carry it. So I bought from Amazon some of these, which are designed for music cases. I've used them a lot when I've made road cases for equipment when we used to be musicians. And this ought to be a good handle system for me to be able to put on these. So first, I'm going to cut wood that fits in these sides. Then I'm going to have to use my fancy CNC router to router out some holes for these, as well as the holes for the fan units. So that'll be the next step. At this point, I've transitioned over to my CNC router station. I'm going to be using my awesome shaper here, Origin, which I've been using for a lot of things, and it's really kind of cool. So first I'll have to set it up, and I've got the dimensions already for this handle, and I need to recess a hole out of it so that I can put the handle in and it'll sit flush. And it's not very thick, but I can set exactly the depth for the recess. So let's see. Using my trusted metric calipers here, it looks like it's going to be about 8 millimeters deep. All right, 8 millimeters deep. So I can set all that up on here, get it all set up, and then I'll show you how it is when I router it out. I didn't think I needed to show you the details of setting up this router. It's really quite amazing, actually. But I can set the depth of route, and I can also set exactly what I want to route out on this computer screen here. Now, the other thing that I needed to do is change out the bit for a wider bit, because I'm going to be doing some what we call pocket routing, and routing out basically just a pocket that's about 8 millimeters thick. So at this point, that's what I will do, and I'll show you what it looks like as soon as it's done. That took a little longer than I expected because I haven't used the Origin router in a while, and I had to remember how to program it and get it all set up. And then I also noticed that the plate, which is the part on top, is the guide system, and that was staying nice, but the wood was sliding all over, so I had to put in a clamp. So that's what you're seeing. And then at the end, I actually found that it routed out a little too narrow, but luckily I can just add some millimeters to the router and get a perfect fit. So here it is, and this is with the plate which I use for the guide to guide the computer, and beautiful. Now all I have to do is router out the same thing on the other side, which will be easy because I already have the pattern. I just have to find the center point, and that's it. So if I just draw this line and this line, then I can use the plate to line it up, do this next one. And then I have to do a fan, and I've got some issues, got to look at the size of the fan because I'm not sure exactly. I know where I'd like to put it, and I'm not sure if it's going to go there. So stay tuned, we'll see. Unfortunately, with this particular cutout for the fan, it's too big for the hole in the shaper plate. So I will have to do this the old-fashioned way, which is by putting some shaper tape on the actual object so that I can have a place for it to see where it's going. And I'm hoping this will be enough, but it may not. We will have to see here. I had some technical difficulties with this one. Once again, mostly just due to having been a while since I've used the shaper. It cuts out a nice hole, as you can see, right there. And there's a little bit of a mess up here, but that shouldn't matter because there's going to be carpeting over this and then a faceplate that goes over that. So I'm actually thinking we're going to be okay. We'll see soon enough. This time I'm going to do what I should have done, which is put some double-sided tape on the back of the piece that I'm actually cutting, because what that does is it tends to keep it in place a lot better and keeps it from slipping around like I just had happen. Well, I think that worked better, so let's see. It did, and the tape helps hold even this piece from sliding around, so that's good. That's what it should look like. What I've gone ahead and done is cut out, using the track saw, tight pieces of plywood so that I can put the carpet on them, we can get them back in place, and then it'll be ready to put into the truck. All right, so as I showed you earlier, this is kind of the look I'm going for. And so what we'll do is we will start by covering these in carpet, which I've left just a little bit of room, so hopefully they will smush in pretty hard. And then I'm going to use screws on the side just to hold them in place. It doesn't have any like structural elements it has to do, so that should be okay. Just need it to be nice and solid, especially when we're off-road. I don't want this thing jiggling a lot. And that's actually part of what I'm doing, is making everything really tight, but also with a little bit of softness in the carpet so it can kind of not wiggle and squeak. And here is the fruits of my labor, which when I put it in the box with the metal should look pretty good. I used glue to glue it to the face. And let's see, cut out the hole for the fan, which will not be here till tomorrow, but that's okay. And let me set this up. The goal was to make them very tight so that you really pretty much have to squeeze them in. But that's looking pretty darn good, if I do say so myself. Well, I ended up having to stop last night because I got tired. And I can't figure out why. I mean, I used to be able to work for hours and hours. Of course, being 56 may have something to do with it. But anyways, last night I managed to get the box done. And I got all the carpeting in place. And I got the handles in. Got the wood kind of screwed in. And I think frankly, I think it looks pretty cool. So I'm pretty excited with how it turned out. So today is the first time I'm going to try and fit it in with the whole unit intact. I need to take a measurement to see what size the next unit for the electronics is going to be. So I want to do that with it in place first. Also, I want to make sure that all of the bolts actually fit. Well, maybe not painfully evident to you, but it was to me. I had to open up a couple of holes a little bit more. They're very tight, surprise, surprise, and the tolerances are pretty close. So, but it's in here, and it's in these steel rails, and I think we're about as strong as anything's going to be in this car. I have a feeling, if we have a wreck, this will be still in place, given all the mounting points. But at any rate, there we go. We've now got a battery box in place. Next episode, I'll start on the electronics box, and we'll see how that goes.